Coming up in today's newscast, Syria vows retaliation after Israel downs one of its fighter jets. The justice minister threatens to resume deportations to Eritrea, and Israeli superstar Netta Barzilai makes her American television debut on The Today Show. This has been quite the turbulent week for Israel, with threats on two fronts that have threatened to boil over into all-out war. Syria has vowed revenge for the downing of one of its fighter jets yesterday after it breached Israeli airspace, triggering Israel's anti-aircraft defense systems. We've confirmed that the pilot in the plane was killed in the crash, but Israel's ambassador to the United Nations says that Israel actually attempted to contact the pilot before shooting down his aircraft.
מערכות ההגנה האווירית שלנו זיהו מטוס של חיל האוויר הסורי, ממריא מבסיס חיל האוויר הסורי T4 וחודר לשטח ישראל. זו הפרה בוטה של הסכמי ההפרדה בינינו ובין סוריה מ-1974. ואני חזרתי והבהרתי שלא נקבל שום הפרה כזאת. לא נקבל שום חדירה ושום זליגה לשטחנו, לא מהקרקע ולא מהאוויר. וכוחותינו פעלו בהתאם. אנחנו עומדים על כך שסוריה תכבד בקפדנות את הסכמי ההפרדה בינינו לבינה.
Needless to say, this incident is the most explosive yet in the ongoing clash of tensions on the Israel-Syrian front. Israel hasn't shot down a Syrian fighter jet in a number of years, but security officials say that regardless of what the pilot's reasons were, this outcome was the only one possible once his plane breached Israeli airspace. Though Syrian officials have condemned Israel's actions and promised that a response is coming soon enough, the front lines are relatively calm 24 hours later. Things have similarly resumed an eerie calm on the Gaza border, despite clashes earlier this week that very nearly erupted into conflict. Last weekend, Palestinian snipers in the Strip targeted and killed an IDF soldier on the border. Israel retaliated by pummeling dozens of Hamas targets within the Gaza Strip. According to the United Nations Middle East envoy, both sides were literally minutes away from an all-out war. Mideast envoy Nikolai Mladenov has warned that regardless of the current ceasefire, the situation is rapidly deteriorating, and a stray spark may be all it takes to engulf the region into a war. Ahead of a top-level security cabinet vote today, Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman has again shown his support for issuing the death penalty for convicted Palestinian terrorists. Lieberman said, quote, "A terrorist who slaughters a family should not return home, and that there is no reason for us to be more enlightened than the United States or Japan on the war on terror." But despite the defense minister's support, many across the political and security spectrum, including the Shin Bet's head of domestic security, Netta Barzilai, reject the need for such a law. Well, returning now to the studio with more on this divisive topic is expert on the Middle East from the Begin Sadat Center at Bar-Ilan University, Dr. Mordechai Kedar, and Nir Avishai Cohen, political advisor and peace activist. Thank you both very much for coming back into the studio.
Pleasure.
All right, so Professor Kedar, Dr. Kedar, I'd like to start with you. Israel already has the death penalty. It's been used once, only once, against Adolf Eichmann. Why do we need to expand the law?
Well, in my view, they don't really need. All they need is to tell the prosecution to demand death penalty on when cases justify it. And the justification will be determined by the court if a case deserves a death penalty or not. The problem is that the prosecution does not demand or does not ask the courts to inflict death penalty even when the cases deserve it.
Neil, same question.
First, I want to clarify that I'm not here to defend on terrorists, but I'm here to defend the life of Israelis and Palestinians that can be affected by this populist and irresponsible law made by irresponsible politicians from the right-wing parties. I'm against this law, and it's not only me. I'm only a major in the IDF, in the Reserve Army. Also, as you said, Nadav Argaman and many other security experts and high-rank commanders from the IDF against this law, they understand that this law can cause more damage than benefits to our life here.
Explain.
I will explain. Shin Bet said that in case that this law will be accepted, a danger of kidnap all over the world for Israelis will be part of our reality, meaning Israelis will be under danger because of this law. So I want to defend the life of Israelis. This is one thing. Second, the situation that can happen in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, according to this law, can affect our life and can demand the life of many people.
Okay, well, so I'd like to bring this back to you, Dr. Kadal. You know, in what way does this endanger further the lives of Israelis here or abroad?
First of all, the considerations are not endangering or not. The question is whether it's a moral punishment or not. This is the question. And whoever tries to go around by saying that this one says this is actually avoiding dealing with the problem. The problem is whether it is or not a moral demand to, or a moral punishment to kill somebody only because he killed somebody else.
And you would argue that it is.
Now, the thing is that I'm asking anyone who is against it, where is the point where it is justified? A man kills 10 people, is it justified? 100 people, is it justified? If not 200 people, is it justified? 500 people, 1,000 people? Where is the line between immoral and moral to inflict death penalty? And this is actually because anyone who tries to say that this law is immoral and therefore they are against it, I always ask them, when will it be moral? Million people? If somebody kills, he deserves death penalty? Tell me.
Do you think that death penalty will affect on terrorists doing or not doing terror attacks in Israel?
So far we saw...
It will affect or not affect, according to your opinion?
Look. There's much research about this. When people know that they will be killed, they might think twice, because if they know that they go to jail and will be released by some kind of a swap in a year or two, they can kill whoever, and this is immoral. Because what you say, actually, if you are against it, that the life of the killer is more valuable than the life of the victims.
It will not help us. That's what I'm saying.
Who told you? Did you try it?
That's what I think. That's what Netta Barzilai, the head of Shin Bet, thinks.
I'd like to take your analogy, Dr. Kadal. I'd like to take your analogy from earlier about expanding that sense in the sense of where do you draw the line of morality? Well, couldn't you draw that back the other way and expand this really to an abusive degree and say, okay, you take one life, that's it, death penalty?
Look, I'm not the one to determine when the line crosses between...
But you're asking the question.
No, what I'm saying is that any punishment system knows how severe should be the punishment in relation to the crime. One has to do with the other. You cannot inflict death penalty for pocket picking somewhere in the marketplace. Okay, it has to be equated to the crime, and therefore what I'm asking is, when will those who oppose this law agree that it is moral to inflict death penalty? How many people should be killed?
It's not about
before
moral, not moral. It's about if it will help our life here, if it will contribute our life here or not.
Definitely, there is much in the research which says that
most of the research said no.
Well, this takes me back to my original question, though, in that you agreed with me that the High Court just needs to request the death penalty more often, not that it doesn't need the prosecutions. Thank you. Not that we need to pass new laws about it. So what do we need these new laws for?
I have no idea. Really, I don't know. Why don't they use?
Why don't they use them are harmful?
What I'm saying is that this is a question. Why? And don't forget that the prosecution is part of the executive authority, not of the judicial. They can look. There is a Minister of Defense. There is Ministry of Justice. They can instruct the prosecution to demand death penalty when the case deserves it. Why not? Look,
because you want to see some Arab blood. Why?
No, I'm talking about the morality of punishment, because it's totally immoral.
What about the reality? What about life here in Israel and in Palestine?
It is totally immoral to put somebody for 2 years in jail because he killed 50 people.
I'm not saying to
and
put
if you say that it's moral, you have a problem.
I'm not saying it's moral to put him 2 years in jail. I never said that.
To release him altogether?
No, he can be in jail all his life.
Yes, but he will be 2 years because then you swap.
The damage that will be caused by killing him by the authorities can be much more worse than putting him in jail.
Maybe it will be a deterrence.
So can you?
Maybe it will be a real deterrence.
How does it cause more damage?
As I said, the situation that can be in the West Bank because of this death of the terrorist can be demand a lot of a lot of lives here in Israel and in
Maybe
the West
not.
Bank.
Maybe you're the opposite. How do you know? Did you try it?
I didn't try it, but
Okay, so
researchers,
how can
I'm
you
saying,
speak?
experts, okay, and the head of the Shin Bet saying this is the situation. So I'm listening to them. Yes, and this is my opinion.
Look, I'm talking about...
How do you know it will not happen? So let's try it. Let's take a risk.
I'm saying that it's totally immoral to prefer the life of a killer on the life of 50 people, let's say, that he killed.
It's not instead.
All right, well,
But this is what you say. If you are against
I want
it,
to say last sentence, please. I suggest the right-wing politicians, instead of trying to find magic solutions, how to beat the terror, to focus on how to find the peace and how to end the occupation and how to make the Palestinian state come true. That's what they have to focus
that will
about.
be a terror state.
Not to find
Another
solution.
Gentlemen, I don't want to go too far off topic here, so unfortunately I do have to end the debate here. So thank you both so much for coming back in.
Pleasure.
A new poll shows that across the political spectrum, the majority of Israelis support the LGBTQ plus community's access to surrogacy and other parental rights. The poll was conducted by Midgam and has a margin of error of 4.2%, but the results show that at least 56% of the public supports the recent LGBT protests.
This number includes 51% of Likud voters, 58% of the religious Jewish Home Party, and well over 80% for the opposition parties like Yesh Atid and the Zionist Union. Additionally, 2 new petitions that were heard in the High Court of Justice earlier this week have garnered the support of Attorney General Mandelblit. The petitions demand the rights to have both parents of a same-sex couple registered on birth certificates and papers for adopted children. Mandelblit said that not allowing this until now hurts equality and doesn't serve a worthy purpose. Interior Minister Aryeh Deri, who heads the ultra-Orthodox Shas party, is against the move, however. He explained that there is no violation of equality and there is no practical purpose to the petitioner's request, except for a symbolic recognition of their relationship. Deri also added an argument in semantics, saying that, quote, 2 fathers shouldn't be registered on the birth certificate because the certificate's purpose is to reflect the factual situation at the time of birth. In addition, the certificate's form only allows room for the names of the mother and the father, end quote. Mandelblit's counter-arguments still weigh heavy, though. As he explained, we aren't dealing with single-sex couples' adoption rights, since it was made legal in 2008. We are only dealing with the registration of same-sex couples on the birth certificate, and not allowing the registration of both parents may harm a minor whose well-being is of a major concern, as well as the parent who will not be registered as such in the birth certificate. This is unjustified.
In an effort to compel nearly 40,000 asylum seekers from Africa to willingly leave the country, Israel passed a law last year deducting 20% of their salaries from their paychecks. This money was supposedly being placed into separate escrow accounts to be released to asylum seekers upon deportation. But a new high court hearing on this law has just played out following allegations that employers were actually putting this money in their own pockets. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with more. Brett?
Thanks. So there's just been a very heated hearing over this law. Now, judges were getting visibly upset trying to understand how or why the government was seeming to allow this escrow money to essentially go totally off the books and instead wind up in employers' wallets. Now, the state's attorney blamed the whole thing on a mix-up between the ministries who are supposed to be, enforcing this matter. But from what I hear, the presiding judge saw right through this. He basically outright called this stealing. The state defended this by saying that it was up to the asylum seekers themselves to essentially chase after the employers on their own. But in a situation where that population has next to zero legal rights, no recognition from the state to begin with, and is terribly impoverished, the court was quite outraged by even the suggestion of that as a realistic option for them.
All right, yeah, this hearing aside, the state has long declared these 40,000 asylum seekers to be illegal infiltrators here for jobs. The vast majority, however, as we know, are Christians from Eritrea and Sudan, 2 countries with historically poor human rights records. Now, this is why they're generally embraced as refugees all over the world, but the state of Israel has granted refugee status to less than 0.5% of those currently in the country.
10.
So this law seems like just one of several attempts by the government to compel asylum seekers to leave of their own free will, following failed attempts to forcibly deport them to Rwanda and Uganda, right?
right? So the government echoed that defense in this court hearing as well. But what's interesting is that it's been over a year since that law passed, right? And actually, it isn't doing what they wanted. It's not working as an incentive to get them to leave. This is something that the judge also tried to rationalize as well. Despite this law and others like it, this population says that they fled war, genocide, and a slave army for a better life. That means there is no incentive to get them to leave because there's nowhere else for them to go in the first place. Now, the judge even said that this is a matter of, cutting a fifth of their salary out is just making their conditions, worse, really, economically and socially, and cutting them off from everything.
All right, well, so that brings us to the next option that the government is considering. Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked says that now that Eritrea and Ethiopia have signed a peace deal, Israel will deport Eritreans back to Eritrea, presuming the nation cancels its mandatory lifelong army draft. Is that realistic?
Well, they're exploring that. And first of all, I don't think Eritrea is anywhere near making a decision like that. Kind of like Israel in a way, Eritrea's conscripted army is a crucial backbone of the country beyond just the war with Ethiopia. Though unlike Israel, Eritrea's army is considered to be one of the most horrific homes of human rights abuses in the world. That's why people traditionally fled. But even if they were to abolish that draft, the asylum seekers in Israel now are wanted fugitives in the eyes of that government. So every last man, woman, and child would be potentially in a very life-threatening situation if they were indeed shipped back there against their will, regardless of the situation with Ethiopia. So personally, for me, no, in my eyes, that's not a realistic option, to answer your question.
All right. We'll keep updated on this. Thank you, Brett.
Of course.
Speaking of workspaces, what's more cliche at work than the company meeting? They're often necessary, but more often can still be kind of boring. Well, my next guest has come up with a way for companies and groups of all sizes to spice up their next event. And joining me in the studio is CEO and founder of Meetings, Doreen Sharon. Thank you so much for coming in. I don't know if I said that right. Did I say that right?
Yes.
I said it right. Okay, so tell me a little bit, what does Meetings do exactly?
Okay. So good evening, my name is Doreen Sharon and I am the founder and the CEO of amazing startup company called Meetings, as you said. Meetings is a one-stop shop solution for all your off-site and event needs. We offer to customers, to happy customers, that there are companies and businesses to plan their off-site meetings and event in our platform. We have more than 20 and 100
Wow.
places all over Israel and more than 300 in London. We launched in UK in last month.
Wow.
Yes.
So how did this start? How did this service kind of start? And is it for like really big companies who are just planning any sort of meeting, or is it for maybe even a startup that doesn't have a physical space, or
Okay, so our customers is all the kind of business and companies. We have very big companies and we have private customers that need some space for a meeting, for presentation, to inspire some team. It's very, very simple. You need to go to our website, www.meetings.com. You need to choose the location, to write how many people, what your budget is, and then you will get list of beautiful and unique places. You need to choose to book, and that's all.
So, okay, I mean, let's expand on this a little bit too. Let's say I and just a bunch of my friends want to get together for, a barbecue or some sort of party. You do that too? No.
We are working just with companies and business, and the platform is just for business event,
Okay.
not to private event, not to wedding, not to barbecue, just
like
for
that.
business.
All right. Well, I'm very excited for this. This sounds very cool.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that it's expanding here in Israel. I'm sure a lot of companies, a lot of the startups here in Tel Aviv especially, are going to take advantage of it. Doreen, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, next, here's a bit of news that will probably shock exactly no one living in Israel. Tel Aviv and Jerusalem have just been named among the top 10 most expensive cities to rent an Airbnb in the world. Probably due to the fact that the overall cost of living and the rent, especially in these two cities, is also among the highest on the planet.
Airbnb is a popular and often cheaper alternative to vacation planning. Instead of renting out an expensive hotel, an Airbnb usually invites you into someone's personal home, either to share the space with them for a fee, or else rent it out entirely while they're gone. And with Airbnbs literally all over the world, the service has also exploded in popularity due to the fact that it's a great way to interact with real locals on your vacation. Local municipalities and hotel corporations, however, sometimes have a bit of beef with the service. They say that Airbnb takes away business from the tourism sector and also contributes to the cycle of boosted rents citywide. Some cities have even passed legislation restricting Airbnb in their sectors. Airbnb has widely rejected these figures, accusing the hotel industry of distorting facts because of the competition. Regardless, an average Airbnb will cost you roughly $87 in Tel Aviv and $82 for the night in Jerusalem. These are significantly lower than the average cost of a decent hotel in either city for sure, but compared to Airbnbs all over the world, those are actually among the top 10 highest rates you'll ever find, right up there with flats in Boston, Miami, Dubai, and Kuwait City. My advice? If cost is a factor, consider a trip to the Holy Land in winter months. Sure, it can get pretty chilly, but prices drop so low that you won't even care.
85 million YouTube views and the 2018 Eurovision crown is just the start for Netta Barzilai. She's all ready to take over the States now, and ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has the details.
Thanks, Aaron. This was such exciting news to wake up to. Our favorite toy singer, Netta Barzilai, made her first American appearance on TV yesterday, where she performed her famous Eurovision winning song and, of course, her classic chicken dance on NBC's Today Show. And if you ask me, I think she's absolutely killing it. Let's take a look real quick at the clip from the show.
Okay.
Wonder Woman, don't you ever forget, you're divine and he's about to regret. He's a buck up knocking, bye. Buck up knocking, I'm not your buck up knocking. I'm not your toy. Not your toy. You stupid boy. Stupid boy. I'll take you down now, baby.
All right, so you'd think we'd get sick of hearing that song eventually, but I think it's still, pretty exciting to see her travel all over the world on international shows. And it reminds everyone, once again, that she won.
Exactly.
Which is nice.
I mean, when I first saw this performance on the Today Show, I got the chills the second I heard her start performing. I think that, the way she presents herself and the song just makes the win all the more special. She mentioned in the quick interview before the performance that the song and its lyrics are inspired by the Me Too movement and is basically there to tell all those people out there, not just women, even though this song seems to be directed towards us, that anyone can do and be whatever it is that they want, no matter who tells them otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, and it's an important time and platform really to be spreading that message,
yeah.
I think, I mean, I know that she's been doing her press tour and she's been on TV shows all over Europe and has been performing in tons of different countries. But I feel like, a lot of Americans are maybe new to her music,
And the message, yeah.
Yeah, they don't often listen to Eurovision and yeah, maybe they didn't get the message behind the song itself.
Exactly. She even said that this whole experience is so, unreal and that she's so excited to be waking up in a different country every day. She probably didn't expect that. She performed in Zurich, Berlin, Madrid, and she even posted yesterday that she's going to be doing a Facebook Live with Billboard in New York City today. She even had her own collaboration with a collaboration commercial with Israeli TV network partner and Netflix, which was such an amazing opportunity. It just feels like she's just getting started taking over the States now.
Yeah, it's what's interesting here, though, I think is, just how this goes to show how down to earth and connected Netta is and can be with her fans and her home country. I heard she even commented about the recent LGBTQ+ protests here, and with such a huge audience, she really has some influence.
She has a crazy influence. She took to her Facebook to post about the protests that had over 100,000 people there and said that even though she's not really physically with all of her fans from the LGBTQ+ community, she's forever standing behind them and believes that, we should all keep shouting loudly until justice has been served. It's really amazing to see her use her recent and global fame now to do so much good, especially with her, her Israeli community.
All right, well, I'm sure this is just the start. This is just the start,
Literally.
for sure, of what we're going to be hearing about Netta Barzilai and for her career in the States. Honestly, I'm just kind of happy that America is getting the chance to meet her, hear a little bit about her, and hear and her win, of course, and to experience the song, because honestly, it really is
genuinely an experience, yes.
Yeah. All right, thanks for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Samru Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day, there are some bad people in this world. I don't think I'm one of them, but sometimes folks get the urge to steal, as we've heard, and that's why today's word is ganav, or thief. There are always many ways to be a ganav, and indeed many ganavim, or thieves in the world, from the hamburglar who steals your food to child actors who gonvim, or steal our hearts. Wherever there is desire, you can bet that there's a gneva, or theft, so watch your stuff at the beach, folks. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be clear and hot with a low of 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow's skies will be partly cloudy with a decrease in temperatures to a high of 88 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.65 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.